So, in my personal opinion, nobody should be taking FLE because fact of the matter is FLE requires effort.
Welcome to Decoding Academic Success, the podcast that goes beyond books to give you secrets of academic excellence. I'm your host Aarav Bijoor, and I'm here to give you tips, tricks, and secrets in how to achieve in your academics. So, get a notebook, a pen, and a highlighter if needed, because we are here to decode the secrets and mysteries of achievements. Let's get started. Welcome to Decoding Academic Success. Here we have Aditya with us. You can call him Walking Dictionary. You can call him Harvey Specter of English. So here he is.
Hello, everybody. Hello, my Micros.
Alright. So let's start the whole podcast. So I wanted to know. So what's your strategy on improving reading the comprehensions? Because they are very long, very tiring, and you feel like sleeping in your exam.
So, tip number one that I would give you whenever you're doing a
Right.
comprehension is to first read the questions. Once you read the questions, you have an understanding of what you want to look for.
Yeah.
So, if you take the questions, you can find the exact words and the keywords, the verbatim, which the examiners are going to look for in the answer. So, now tip number one, always look at the questions.
Right.
Tip number two, make sure you have your eye out for any guidelines that they've given you implicitly. So, if they've asked you in the question to translate, for example, sometimes they're going to tell you which word emphasizes or which word is the direct translation to this phrase in the comprehension.
Right.
So, first you need to understand what that phrase is and understand what context that phrase is being used in.
Yeah.
So, in English, context plays a very big role whenever you're trying to identify the usage and meaning of words. Words have their meanings changed based on when and how they're being used. So, that's one thing you have to look out for. Another thing is in the comprehensions, make sure you're focusing on any dialogues. So, if there are quotations or if it is an extract, then make sure you have your eyes out for the backgrounds and adjectives.
Yeah. So moving forward, tell me, how do you approach writing these essays? As in, how do I, stand perfectly on these marks when it comes to my clarity of sentences and my structure of the whole, the paragraph book?
So, there are four types of key players when you're writing an essay: long and short paragraphs, long and short sentences, exceptional punctuations, which are your not commas and full stops, which is hyphens and the dashes.
Right.
So, the way you are going to be using this is going to help you in your structure. And for clarity, what I can tell you is before you start to write, have a mind map or have some train of thought about what you're going to write. So, the best essays, like, okay,
Right.
so when you're writing an essay, essays have to be rooted in facts with a lot of examples. So you need to understand, if I'm writing this example, how does this connect to my topic? So the first 15 minutes of an essay, you should be thinking, here are my examples. This is my context.
Yeah.
How am I going to connect these examples with the context?
Yeah.
And then you put it into long paragraphs and short paragraphs. So normally the kind of flow I go with is short, long, short, short, and then another long paragraph. So the long paragraph is for added context.
Yeah.
The longer paragraph is going to be where you're going to get your information, where your facts in.
Yeah.
The shorter paragraphs are normally for emphasis. But this is only for essays. Now, so for narratives and descriptives, the whole game changes.
Yeah.
But that first 15 minutes of planning is still the most crucial part of writing an essay.
Right.
When you're writing any narrative or descriptive essay, the most important part is your train of thought. A good narrative needs to have a good structure and a story. You need to understand how you start and how you end before you think of anything in the middle.
Yeah.
Because if you end on a cliffhanger that is inappropriate, which shouldn't be there, then the teachers will cut marks for that. Or
Right.
if your ending is not a satisfying ending, that's going to leave questions asked. So, you again, for your structure, the most important thing for you to do is just have a train of thought, and for clarity of writing, use long and short sentences, long and short paragraphs.
Right. So, the biggest problem that the people face in my grade and say mostly all the grades is vocabulary. See, we know you're a walking dictionary, but not all of us are. So, how do we expand our vocabulary when it comes to writing?
Right. So one thing that you can always do is just open up a dictionary. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And so I've been doing this for a long time. Each day I'll open up my dictionary. I'm going to just glance over, and any words which catch my interest, I'm going to write down the definition of that word. And I'm going to try my level best to include that into day-to-day conversation. Because before writing, English is at its core a speaking language. It's a language which is supposed to be spoken. So the more you speak, the more you are able to do better when you're writing. So, for example, when I was just glancing through the dictionary in section K, there was one word which caught my eye, which was kakistocracy.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what this means.
No.
So, kakistocracy means a system of governance where the people holding power are not worthy of the power.
Right.
So, I started using this in MUNs. Whenever I have to criticize a government for not being a good government, I'll say that it is a kakistocracy. Whenever I'm saying like, oh, this school's management is a kakistocracy, I can do a better job. So the more you use these words in your day-to-day speaking, the more you can use these words in your writing. So again, conversation is the most important part whenever you're expanding vocabulary. And one thing I've picked up from Hanif sir is just come up and have a conversation with anybody. It doesn't matter what level of power they're at. It doesn't matter if they're seniors, juniors. As long as they're people who want to have a conversation with you, have one. So one advice I'll give you: if you can't find a person to converse with, come up to the sixth floor during the break time. I'm always free. Strike up a conversation with your seniors about it. Can be about anything, really. And conversations are really the most vital part of preparing for an English exam.
So, there's this big problem when it comes to word effects. Correct. Because I see my exams getting a big zero when it comes to word effects. So, what do I do to develop my strong arguments and this whole perfect paragraph type so that my teacher doesn't like grade me a zero and give me a lecture after?
Right. So word effects are very tricky because you need to do three very crucial steps for understanding or writing a good word effect.
Right.
Number one, you need to understand what type of word effect a writer has used. So whether he has used onomatopoeia to include some sort of imagery,
Yeah.
or he has just used plain imagery to make a better description, whether he has used contracting words to make a clashing difference and a contrast between the situation. So first you need to understand what he's writing, then you need to understand why he is writing it, and then you need to put it in your own words. So one thing I tell you, you need to first look at the most basic types of these words effect, which is simile, onomatopoeia, and this one, phrases, or what do you call it? Yeah, phrases.
Yeah.
So these phrases and similes, they're going to be the most common ones to use and identify. So if you just have a set baseline for this word effect for these three, you can basically get away with 2 to 3 marks out of 2 to 3 marks. So for word effect, it is better to have a slate or a template wherein you're just putting in words, or you're putting in case sensitive phrases or similes, and then you just make that same template again. So oh. ठीक है. So for word effect, you just have to make a template that's set for you. So what I used to do is, I used to find one thing that the writer is doing, and I used to, because you see, when you're reading, some things will catch your eyes, and that is what the paper is asking you
Yeah.
for. What has the writer done to catch the interest of the reader?
Yeah.
So these things which catch your interest, you need to understand why the writer has put it in this specific context. So I'll read something where he is like, the clouds were thundering, but the people were silent. So this is going to tell you like the contrast between the nature and how much of a dangerous situation is versus how calm the main characters are. And that's just something you develop on. So you will just see, essentially you just need to, start
Yeah.
praising the writer.
Yeah.
That's essentially what word effect is. It is your chance to be like, oh, the writer has shown such immaculate conception,
Right.
such beautiful phrasing. You just have to really, really start to praise your writer like he is a boss.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's about how many adjectives you're putting in and how your understanding of the phrases are. Because word effect is going to be how you identify and how you put it into basic terms.
Right. So, there's this very, very, very big problem when it comes to writing a paper. Because we get this thick paper and then we have a set time. But the most difficult thing is completing the paper. Because normally we generally start from the start. So we go comprehension, grammar, and then we start towards creative writing.
Right.
But by the end of my first creative writing, I have to leave the second one.
Because you don't have time.
Yeah, because I already see my 25 marks going down the drain.
So I'll tell you one thing. The only way you can prepare to write your English essay better is by writing more English essays. This is not something that you can skip out on. Me personally, I've been writing one essay, one narrative every week, and then I've had it being corrected by my peers and my teachers. So your teachers are not going to be like, oh, I don't want to correct this, I don't have the free time. So whatever you write, your teachers will help you work on that. So once a week, just once a week, write something, anything. And the more you write, the more you'll improve your speed, the more you'll improve your understanding. But if you have to sacrifice on one of the essays, read both questions and then which one you think you can do better, do that.
Right.
Because it's a question of which one is the lesser evil at that point. So if you're going to leave something, leave the one which you're going to be confirmed getting less marks in.
Right.
So if I had to choose between a narrative and a descriptive, where the descriptive is simpler and I'll easily get more marks in that, I'd leave the narrative because the descriptive is just an objectively better option.
Yeah.
But again, just keep writing. If you want it, send it over to me. I'll correct it for you. I'll help you out. But writing out these essays is not something that you can skip on.
Right. So say I'm this below average student right now, and say across a year, I want to like shoot up my grades to the roof. What do I do across this year to say master in English? Because normally I see personally my grades like going down
Because of English. Right. So over the course of a year, I'd say don't put too much effort into English because again, English is something that can be improved as both a passive and an active skill as compared to other subjects where you need to put in more effort. So, number one, again, coming back to the start, having a good conversation with somebody is always very helpful, and just writing. So, you don't need to put in too much effort for English. 5-10 minutes a day is just enough. And then on the weekends, maybe a Saturday or a Sunday where you're just lazing around, pick up a pen you like to write in, and then just start jotting down your ideas. Start writing an essay.
Right.
Whenever you feel like, oh, I've got some creativity right now, I have an idea, put it down.
Right.
So these things will always help you, and it is a habit. So these things, these abilities or these habits that you're putting in, this is just passive things that are going to help you advance over the course of a long time. So one thing I say, don't treat English as a subject, treat it as a skill.
Yeah.
Because everything else you have to study to get good marks in. But with English, you're not studying only to get good marks, you're studying to become a better person.
Yeah.
Because the way you speak is going to be very important to your first impression, and how you're speaking, how you're writing is going to help and change a lot of your future.
Yeah.
So rather than treating it as a subject where you have to study, treat it as a skill where you take a break from studying and then do English.
Right.
So after eating lunch, everybody wants to laze around. Pick up a dictionary, write down 5 words a day that you find interesting, and then the next day when you're having a conversation with your friends, try to substitute some words for the words that you've written down. And then on, like they said, Saturdays, Sundays, just write down
Right.
something, come up, have a conversation with your seniors. These are all passive skills that are going to help you improve over the course of the year.
Right. Aditya, could you tell me there's this big problem with us? Like, this is big confusion because we are bombarded with this question to take FLE or ESL. Because normally, won't name the teachers, but surely we get targeted a lot on taking FLE or ESL. Suppose you're a high scorer in ninth grade, but as soon as you take FLE, you start dipping down in 10th grade. But that is what we don't want. So, who should take FLE and ESL? Because I see many people in ninth grade itself shifting to ESL, and then they don't have this courage to take FLE in 10th. Because ESL is generally considered very down.
Lesson.
Yeah.
Right. So, in my personal opinion, nobody should be taking FLE because fact of the matter is FLE requires effort. First language English is not something that you can just breeze over like we've been doing in ninth or like you can do in ESL. So in my personal experience, it is much better to allocate that time to the other subjects where you need effort rather than putting it in English, which is considered as a secondary subject, or languages are generally treated as lesser.
Yeah.
So normally nobody should make the active choice of taking FLE. I've advised my sister as well to not take FLE. But one thing I'll say is FLE is a lot better suited for people who have creative ability, and ESL is better suited for people who are going to approach it logically. So in ESL, you have comprehensions and you have an essay, a letter. You won't have to pump out more creativity, you won't have to get a full storyline intact for this as much as you would have for FLE.
Yeah.
Whereas in FLE, you have your comprehension paper, which also has a writing, and you also have your writing paper, which is narrative descriptive.
Yeah.
So FLE is a lot better suited for people who are, I say, genetically predisposed to have better English.
Yeah.
Like, you're just from the get-go, if you feel like you're better at a language and you feel like FLE is the better choice for you, I'd say still take a consultation, check out, solve some papers and find out what works best for you, because FLE grading is very tough. Although the paper pattern is the same as it was in the ninth grade,
Right.
the grading and the sheer amount of scrutiny that the teachers are going to put your papers through is worlds apart. It's not the same level where, okay, ninth may have gotten good with FLE format, I'll also get good in 10th.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. So I was given the option for taking FLE and I rejected it to take ESL. One thing me and my friends used to say is getting the option for FLE is a sign of being smart, and choosing the option to take FLE is a sign of stupidity. Because fact of the matter, again, it's too much effort. It's not worth it.
Right.
ESL is objectively just better because you can allocate your time to other things, and FLE doesn't help you as much to build and develop on the normal day-to-day skills that English is supposed to help you with. And one thing that you have with ESL is your speaking exam, which again, I love speaking. The speaking was my forte, and it's just something that once you find out ki, oh, I need to work on my speaking skills, you will start developing English as a skill, which is, in my opinion, better than developing it as a subject.
Right.
So again, it is person to person, it's going to change depending on what you feel like is better for you. One advice I can give you is solve some FLE papers, solve some ESL papers, and just work out your priorities, because ESL is easier. That's just the truth.
Right. Okay, it was amazing meeting you and you giving us your time. All these essential tips you have given us is going to help every child in say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I hope every 10th grader becomes like you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Harvey Spector. It was amazing meeting you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.